The halls of the Tower of the Hand were colder than usual, even for a man raised in Winterfell. Ned Stark paced slowly near the window, his jaw clenched and his thoughts heavy. The candlelight danced against the parchment in his hand. Robert's will, naming Ned as protector of the realm until the true heir took the throne. But Joffrey was not the true heir. That much was clear now. Robert's children, no, Cersei's children, had Lannister blood, not a drop of Baratheon in them. Varys had spoken in riddles. Littlefinger had promised gold and power, but Ned had no patience for games anymore. The truth was too heavy for lies. He called for Maester Pycelle. When the old man entered, carrying his chain with pride, Ned's voice was like ice. "I need a raven sent to Dragonstone at once." Pycelle hesitated, blinking in confusion. "Dragonstone, my lord? To Stannis?" "Yes," Ned said firmly. "He is Robert's true heir. The Iron Throne is his by right." Pycelle's face shifted, lips twitching with unease. "But there are others who would support Lord Renly. He is younger, more beloved." "Renly is not the king," Ned snapped. "Robert had brothers. Only one was next in line. We will not play politics with bloodlines." Pycelle bowed slowly and left, but Ned knew the old man would whisper this to Cersei within the hour. It didn't matter. The pieces had already moved. In the chambers of the Red Keep, Cersei Lannister stared at the sealed letter with growing dread. When she broke the wax and read Ned's words, his declaration of support for Stannis, his call to arms for bannermen loyal to House Baratheon, her wine cup shattered in her hand. "He's made his choice," she hissed, "and he will pay for it." That night Ser Jaime drew steel in the halls, but Ned had anticipated it. His guards had doubled, and Ser Barristan Selmy stood with him. The Kingsguard was divided now, some loyal to the crown, some to honor. The City Watch, too, did not bend to gold. Not this time. Lord Commander Janos Slynt had been replaced quietly by a man of Stark's choosing, Captain Morell, a hard man from Gulltown who had no love for Lannisters or their games. On the second morning, Ned Stark walked into the small council chambers not with guards, but with swords drawn and a signed will in hand. "By Robert's last command," he announced to the stunned lords, "I assume the role of protector of the realm. The boy Joffrey is not of Baratheon blood. Stannis is the rightful heir, and I call upon you to uphold the king's will." Littlefinger leaned back in his chair with that sly grin. "And you expect everyone to accept this, without a war?" "I expect them to honor the truth," Ned replied. "And if they do not, then yes, war will come." 2 days later, black sails were spotted near the coast. The Baratheon stag of Dragonstone arrived at King's Landing with no pomp. Stannis Baratheon stepped ashore with Ser Davos at his side and the Red Woman, Melisandre, watching the city from beneath her red hood. He didn't smile when he saw Ned. Stannis rarely smiled, but he offered a stiff nod. "You've done what others lacked the courage to do," he said. "I will not forget that." "You are king now," Ned said quietly. "But Westeros is not yours yet." "No," Stannis agreed, eyes cold. "But soon it will be." News spread fast. In the north, Robb Stark didn't ride to war, but he prepared. The bannerman held fast, awaiting his father's command. In the south, Renly declared his own claim, but he found few allies. With Ned Stark and the Crownlands behind Stannis, Renly's support faltered. Only Highgarden whispered support, and they waited cautiously, not willing to gamble. At Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister began moving his armies. Jaime rode south, gathering bannermen. Cersei, however, remained trapped in the Red Keep, under watch, her son no longer king. The game had changed, but the war had just begun. The Iron Throne stood silent beneath the echoing dome of the Great Hall. Its shadow reached long across the stone floor, as if it too were waiting for something, waiting for a true king to sit upon it again. Stannis Baratheon did not hesitate when he entered. He walked straight up the steps of twisted swords and took his seat, his jaw tight, his eyes cold as steel. There was no celebration, no shouts of joy or tossing of petals, only the shuffling of boots and the uneasy silence of power-shifting hands. Ned Stark stood by his side, not as a conqueror, but as the man who had made this moment possible. He did not smile. This wasn't victory. Not yet. The crown sat on Stannis' brow, but the Lannisters were not beaten, and power always came at a price. Behind them, the small council was rebuilt. Littlefinger had fled the city like a rat sensing floodwaters. Varys remained, quietly watching, his hands always folded. Ser Davos was named Master of Ships. Maester Cresson arrived from Dragonstone to replace Pycelle, and Melisandre. She watched it all with her eerie calm, standing too close to Stannis for Ned's liking. The Red Woman made everyone uneasy. That night, Ned found her in the Godswood, standing beneath the heart tree, as if mocking it. "You Southerners never honored the old gods," he said quietly. Melisandre turned her red eyes on him. "There is only one god, Lord Stark, and he is not watching from these trees. I've seen the things your kind calls holy," Ned muttered. "Shadow and blood, death and fire." "You'll see much more before this ends," she replied. "There is war coming, and only one man can stand in the light. You chose wisely, though your heart is heavy with doubt." She left him then, her red cloak dragging over the snow-dusted ground like a wound across the earth. In the days that followed, ravens flew across the realm. Some bent the knee quickly. House Baratheon of Storm's End, under Ser Courtenay Penrose, swore fealty to Stannis without resistance. The Stormlands returned to their rightful lord, but others resisted. Tywin Lannister declared war from the Westerlands, calling Ned Stark a traitor and Stannis a usurper. His son Jaime, freed from the scandal that followed Joffrey's illegitimacy, marched with 20,000 men toward the Riverlands, burning and pillaging as they went. Stannis wanted to strike at them immediately, but Ned counseled caution. "If you rush to war, you'll find yourself fighting on too many fronts. Secure the Vale, secure the Reach, then march." "The Reach will not side with me," Stannis said. "They favored Renly." "Then give them a reason to change their minds," Ned said. "Let them see honor, not fire and death." But it was too late for peace. Renly Baratheon had not abandoned his claim. In the camp outside Bitterbridge, he wore his golden crown and gathered thousands under the banners of House Tyrell. His lords dined and laughed while the realm burned. He believed charm and youth would win the day. Melisandre warned Stannis, "Your brother stands in your way. He has stolen the hearts of men who should follow you. He must be removed." Stannis looked to Ned. "Will you stop me from doing what must be done?" "I will stop you from turning this into blood magic." "And shadows," Ned said. "Win this war with your sword, not with sorcery." But Stannis did not answer him. That night the Red Woman vanished from the castle, and so did Maester Cresson, his old body found cold, his lips stained with poison, his last breath taken. In silence, Ned didn't need a maester to know what had happened. The next morning word came. Renly Baratheon was dead in his tent, his throat torn open by something no man saw. Panic spread through his camp. The Tyrells withdrew. Thousands bent the knee to Stannis in fear and confusion. Sir Loras cried over his brother's body and swore vengeance, but no one could prove anything. Only rumors, whispers of a shadow with a king's face. Back in King's Landing, Ned knew the war had taken a darker turn. The North held still, but he could feel Robb's frustration. Letters came asking why they hadn't joined the fight, why Jaime Lannister still rode free. "Because this is not our war," Ned whispered to himself. But deep down, he knew better. Every victory that came by fire and shadows drew them all closer to ruin. And Stannis, his king by law, was becoming a man Ned no longer recognized. The morning air in the capital was thick with smoke and unease. Soldiers filled the streets of King's Landing, not Lannister men in crimson, but Stannis' forces, lean, grim, hardened by Dragonstone's wind and fire. The people called it a peace, but they whispered fear behind closed doors. They traded one king for another, and somehow it felt colder now. Ned Stark stood on the walls, looking out across Blackwater Bay. The sea was calm, but he'd seen calm seas turn to storms in moments, and storms were brewing all across Westeros. Robb had written again, "Father, I can no longer sit idle while the Lannisters slaughter the Riverlands. Lord Tywin's men have burned every village from Harrenhal to the Trident. House Tully begs for aid. Mother pleads for restraint, but the North remembers. I must march." Ned read the words aloud, each one like a hammer on his chest. Stannis read them too, and handed them back without emotion. "Let him go if he must. He fights my enemies. The boy may serve a purpose after all." "He is not a pawn," Ned said, sharply. "He is not king either," Stannis replied. "Neither are you, Stark. I allow you to sit at my council, but do not mistake your place." Ned's hand hovered over the hilt of his sword before he caught himself. "I'm not your enemy. Stannis, I backed you because you were the rightful heir. But I'll not stand by while your war turns men into shadows and brothers into prey." Stannis' face hardened. "Then pray, Lord Stark. Pray the war ends quickly, or else there will be no realm left to rule." Far to the west, Robb Stark marched with the direwolf banners flying high. The boy, who had once played with wooden swords, now rode in silence, his face like stone, his eyes colder than the north. Catelyn begged him to show mercy, to remember he fought not for conquest, but for justice. But Robb had seen the butchered bodies in the Riverlands. He'd seen what Lannister men did to the small folk, the women, the children. Justice had become vengeance. The young wolf struck hard. Jaime Lannister, leading Tywin's vanguard, fell into Robb's trap near Oxcross. In one night, he shattered 1,000 men, captured Jaime, and sent his head in chains to King's Landing. Ned received the news in silence. He stared long at the lion's golden hair, matted with dirt and blood. Once they had been allies. Once they had laughed under the same roof, but the game had devoured them all. "You raised a warrior," Ser Davos said beside him. "No," Ned replied. "I raised a boy. The war made him something else." In the west, Tywin Lannister seethed. With Jaime captured and the Riverlands slipping away, he turned to darker allies, Walder Frey, Rose Bolton, and whispers of deals even darker. He promised titles, gold, and revenge. All he needed was patience, and patience Tywin had plenty of. Meanwhile, in the Red Keep, the throne room grew colder. The Red Woman's presence was everywhere now. Her fires burned nightly in the courtyards, and her priests whispered of Azor. Ahai, the prince who was promised. They said Stannis was chosen. They said the throne would burn if he was denied. Ned watched her sermons from afar. He saw noblemen kneel, not out of faith but out of fear. He saw Selyse Baratheon embrace her god more than her husband, and he saw Shireen, the quiet daughter with kind eyes, pushed further into the shadows. The court was falling under her spell, and Stannis. Stannis no longer looked like the man who had once stood beside Robert at Storm's End. He was turning into something colder, something harder, something that needed blood. Then came the day Melisandre spoke to Ned directly. "You are troubled. Lord Stark, I am wary of fire that claims to be holy," he said. She smiled. "And yet you chose it. You chose Stannis, and he will win. But first, he must burn the lies from the realm. I'll not see innocents burned in your god's name." "You may not have a choice," she whispered. "War demands sacrifice. Even wolves must bleed to feed the flame." That night, Ned dreamed of snow falling over the Red Keep, of wolves howling from the towers, of fire rising from the throne and devouring everything in its path. When he woke, the dawn sky was red. A raven waited at his window. Winterfell is under attack. Bolton banners rise. Your bannermen are dead. The north bleeds. His hands trembled. His voice cracked. Robb. The wind in King's Landing had changed. Ned could smell it. The smoke, the blood, the rot beneath the stone. Even in the Red Keep, high above the filth and fire, he felt it in his bones. Winter was not just coming. It had arrived in the north, and with it, treachery as bitter as the cold. The raven's message still haunted him. Winterfell is under attack. He read the words again, as if they might change. But they didn't. The sigil on the scroll was unmistakable. House. Mormont, loyal, honest, and desperate. Rose Bolton had turned traitor. Ned gripped the windowsill, knuckles white. He betrayed us. Varys entered the room without a sound, his presence like a cold whisper behind him. I warned you, Lord Stark. The North is not immune to ambition. You left a power vacuum, and someone always fills it. Ned turned sharply. Winterfell is my home. He dares defile it. Yes, Varys said softly, and he does so with Lannister gold. Ned's eyes narrowed. It made sense now. Tywin had not vanished. He had turned to daggers in the dark. If he could not break Stannis in the south, he would burn the north from within. He had found his dagger in Rose Bolton. Robb had marched south, winning battles and sending fear into Tywin's heart. But in doing so, he'd left Winterfell nearly unguarded. And that's when the traitors struck. Rose claimed Winterfell in the name of the king. Not Stannis, but a new king, Tommen Baratheon, the Lannisters' puppet. He said the North would no longer die for southern wars, but that was a lie. He wanted power. The Dreadfoot always wanted more. He'd sent Ramsay, his bastard, to sack the castle. The ancient halls of House Stark burned. The crypts were desecrated. The people butchered. Ned sat in the council chamber, the letter trembling in his hand. She was still there, he whispered. Sansa, left in Winterfell, under the care of Maester Luwin and old retainers. He'd believed the war would not touch the North. He had been wrong. A second raven confirmed it. Maester Luwin was dead. Dozens more were executed or flayed alive. Sansa's fate was unknown. Stannis did not share Ned's horror. His face remained stone. You said the North was not our war, Stannis said coolly, yet now you ask me to send my armies there? They are killing my people, Ned growled, my family. And I am fighting for a throne that was stolen from me. You expect me to turn from the Lannisters now, to chase a bastard up into snow and shadows? They burned Winterfell, Ned said, barely controlling his voice. You sit on the Iron Throne because I put you there. Now I ask for justice. Justice? Melisandre stepped forward, uninvited, her red eyes bright like embers. Justice will come through fire. You want vengeance for the North? Then give the North to the flames. Let your enemies burn. Stannis was quiet, too quiet. He didn't reject her. That was the moment Ned felt something deep and sharp twist in his chest. A fear not of defeat, but of what his ally was becoming. Stannis was losing his soul to win the throne, and Ned had helped him. That night Ned walked the walls alone. The wind tore at his cloak, and the city below looked like 1,000 dying stars. His mind raced. He could no longer trust the Red Woman. He could no longer trust the throne he'd helped place Stannis on. He thought of Robb, alone in the Riverlands, facing Tywin's fury. He thought of Jon at the wall, where ravens whispered of strange things beyond it, undead things, snow demons, blue eyes in the night. And he thought of Sansa, his little girl, gone, maybe dead, or worse, in the hands of the bastard of Bolton. His heart turned. That same night he went to Ser Davos. I need a ship, Ned said. Quietly, no banners, no sigils. Davos didn't ask questions. You're leaving the capital? Yes, Ned said. I'm going home. Alone? Ned looked out across the sea. I won't be alone long. But Melisandre watched from the darkness. She saw the hand of the king move through the shadows like a man with secrets in his bones. She saw his fire flicker. She went to Stannis in the throne room, where Lightbringer rested beside the Iron Throne. "He will betray you," she whispered. "He already doubts you. He leaves tonight." Stannis didn't move. "He must be punished," she said softly, "or your kingdom will fall before it begins." Stannis's eyes were cold, unreadable. "Let him go," he finally said. "Let the wolf run, but my king, let him go." And so Ned Stark disappeared from the capital that night. No guards, no banners, only snow in the wind and vengeance in his heart. He was going north, and winter was coming with him. The wind howled through the broken gates of Winterfell like a grieving mother. Snow drifted in from the torn-open sky, falling on blackened stone and frozen blood. The flayed banners of House Bolton still hung from the walls, stiff with frost, but their colours had faded. Death lingered in every corner of the courtyard. Ned Stark stood at the gate, cloaked in silence, eyes locked on the ruins of his home. It was no longer Winterfell. It was a scar on the north. Behind him rode a small band, northern loyalists, scattered, survivors who still believed in the wolf banner. They had met him at White Harbour, at Baratheon, at villages burned and broken by Bolton men. Word had spread that Eddard Stark lived. And so the north began to rise again. But not all could be saved. The crypts had been desecrated, the bones of kings and queens thrown from their tombs, crushed beneath boot and fire. Ned had walked the broken steps and stood before his father's shattered statue. He'd fallen to his knees in silence. Sansa had not been found. No remains. No messages. Nothing. Some said Ramsay had taken her. Others that she had escaped. But no one knew for sure. The unknown gnawed at Ned worse than any blade ever had. He stood now with sword in hand, his face carved from stone, watching as the gates opened, because Ramsay Bolton had come to meet him. The bastard wore fine furs and a smug smile. He came with 50 riders and flayed men nailed to carts like trophies. "So," Ramsay said, reins in one hand, a sausage in the other, "the old wolf came back after all." Ned said nothing, just stared. "I'd say I'm surprised you're still breathing, but I guess Fire Kings are good at keeping their pets alive." He took a bite. "Shame about the girl, though. Pretty thing." That was it. Ned didn't speak, didn't threaten, didn't make declarations. He drew his sword and charged. The snow erupted with steel and fury. Northern blades clashed with Bolton. Steel, but it was not a battle, it was a slaughter. The North had not come for war, it had come for vengeance. Ned fought like a man possessed. Every stroke was a prayer to the old gods. Every drop of blood spilled a debt paid. His blade cut down Bolton riders, his shield shattered spears. When he reached Ramsay, the bastard laughed and swung wildly, but Ned had fought in rebellion. He had faced Kingsguard and mountain clans, Ironborn and Wildlings. Ramsay was a dog with a blade, cruel but undisciplined. It ended with a single cut. Ramsay's smile froze as the cold steel of ice, Ned's reforged greatsword, drove through his gut. He coughed blood and grinned. "She screamed your name." Ned drove the blade deeper. "She screamed when one final thrust silenced him forever. Winterfell was retaken, but it did not bring peace. Stannis sent no ravens, no aid. He had declared the North lost to madness and ordered it sealed off. Until order returned. The throne was more important to him than any home, and Rob's war had taken a darker turn. He had marched south to break Tywin once and for all, but the Lannisters had sprung their trap. Walder Frey, Rose Bolton's former ally, had betrayed the Starks again. The Red Wedding still happened. Robb died in the Riverlands, betrayed not at a feast, but in the field, where Frey archers struck his men from behind. His direwolf was slain. Catelyn was captured, her cries echoing across the banks of the Green Fork. The news reached Ned like a second sword in the heart. His son, the king in the north, gone. The north held on, but it was bleeding. Ned ruled what was left. Scattered villages, broken bannermen, and a ruined castle. They still called him Lord of Winterfell, but he knew the truth. The north was a ghost of what it had been. One night, as he stood by the fire in the great hall, he found himself alone with Maester Vulcan, one of the few who had survived. I could take the crown, Vulcan said quietly. They would follow you. Not just the north, the riverlands, even the Vale. Stannis is lost to his fire god. The people need something real, something old. But Ned shook his head. I am not a king, he said. I followed the law, and it led me here. Then what now? The Maester asked. Ned looked toward the snow-covered courtyard, where fresh graves had been dug. Now, he said, we bury the dead, we rebuild, and we wait for the next storm. Beyond the wall, the storm was already rising. Jon Snow stood atop the wall, looking into the endless dark of the north. Ghost growled beside him, and far off something moved. White shadows against the trees, silent and cold. Winter had come, and it did not care who wore the crown.